Everything you need to know about your firm's data with Sachin Bakhai, episode 156. Are you ready to make your law firm a profit-generating machine that will free up your time and skyrocket your impact? With more than 2 decades of business growth experience and having proven that you can be successful while prioritizing your family and your impact, introducing the Profit with Law podcast. I am your host, the creator of the Firm Differentiator 10X Effect, Moshe Amsel. Well, hello and welcome to another amazing episode here on the Profit with Law podcast. I'm actually jumping in here and recording an extra intro. So this is an intro to the intro because I want to share 2 things with you. Number one, our guest today, Sachin Bakhai of EZlytix, is, first of all, it's a great conversation. I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. But EZlytix has joined us as a sponsor of the Law Firm Growth Summit. So I want to give them an extra shout out here at the beginning of the episode, thanking Sachin and his team for voting on us, taking a chance with us to bring him in front of our amazing audience. If you have not gotten your ticket to the Law Firm Growth Summit yet, what are you waiting for? And I say that because the price goes up on Monday. We have an unbelievable discount. Tickets discounted as much as 75% off of their full price. There's 3 different tiers, 3 different levels of ticket, depending on what kind of attendee you are. This is a virtual event, but it will feel like an in-person conference. And no, you won't be able to hug anybody, but there will be networking. There will be entertainment. There will be amazing speakers. There will be hands-on workshops. And we're going to be doing a grand prize giveaway. I can't announce it yet because depending on how we do with sponsors and ticket sales, we really are aiming to give away something big. So I'm not going to make any promises on air here until I'm ready to, but there will be an announcement in the future. And when you purchase a VIP ticket or above, you get an entry to that giveaway, but do not worry, you'll have opportunities to get entries other ways. You do not need to splurge for VIP if you're not able to. Tickets are, I'm not going to give pricing here because I don't know when you're listening to this, and I don't want you to feel badly if you missed out on a really good price, but I do want you to go to www.lawfirmgrowthsummit.com and check it out for yourself. We have not yet posted the agenda, the speaker lineup. We're going to be announcing those as we roll out the promotion, but this is your opportunity. If you've been tuned into this podcast, you've been listening to me, you know that I am going to bring a stellar event to you. Just jump on in. It is not going to break the bank for you. I'd love to see you there. www.lawfirmgrowthsummit.com. And now we will go to the interview. My guest today is Sachin Bakhai. Sachin is the CEO of EZlytix, and he's an entrepreneur who's passionate about data and focuses on harnessing data to help law firms grow, compete, and be more profitable. I'm particularly excited about my opportunity to have a conversation here with Sachin because in a prior podcast interview, we were introduced to the idea of a Jumbotron. And we're going to link that interview up in the show notes. But essentially, it's incredibly important for a law firm owner to know their numbers and to be able to understand their numbers and what it's telling them. And we're going to dive into this with Sachin to talk about what analytics are, like what are we looking at with those numbers. But I'm opening up my phone right now to look up the episode because I didn't think of having this prepared beforehand that I am referring to give you that episode number. And give me 1 second here. While I look this up, Sachin, I'm going to bring you on and allow you to introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about who you are and how you got into EZlytix. And I'll go back and refer to this episode so people know to look at it and share a little bit more about that. So Sachin, welcome to the show.
Good morning, and thank you, Moshe, for having me on the show. My name is Sachin Bakhai. I'm the founder of EZlytix. To give you a Reader's Digest version of my background, I used to build analytics for Fortune 1000 companies for a very long time. And I noticed that small, mid-sized enterprise, they have enough data, but they still lack the insights that they need to make better decisions, right? Every owner needs to run their firm as a business. So our main focus has been on manufacturing and distribution. And one of my manufacturing clients, law firm, reached out to us and they were struggling. They were struggling big time in understanding their profitability. They were struggling with utilization. They were struggling where to spend the money in terms of marketing. So they reached out to us and we connected with their multiple systems and we built a dashboard. We built several dashboards for them, from the managing partner to the attorneys, and even paralegals can use it. And in the process of building this dashboard, what happened is it turned into a product. And then Clio is one of a big solution used by a lot of law firms. So I had an opportunity to meet with Jack Newton, and I discussed with him what we were doing. And he encouraged us, saying there's a huge market and a lot of law firms can benefit from getting the visibility that we provide. So that's why we invested more money and we converted it into a full-fledged product.
Awesome. Yeah, I love the background, and I love that Jack Newton encouraged you to continue on the path that you were on. One of the things that's going to help us create better technology to create a more seamless business operation in the legal industry is when players play nicely together, and an abundance mindset, and not worrying about, oh, somebody is entering my space and competing with me. So I really like that, the Clio and many of the other vendors have created a world, kind of like an app store, where you can, partners can come in with an open API and they can create different developments to fill different needs. And this is a perfect example. When I started supporting law firms in the accounting industry, many of my initial clients were on Clio, and this is a number of years ago. So I don't know where Clio is at today with this, but at that time, the reporting feature was extremely limited. You basically had these reports out of the box that you could run, and there was no way to configure it other than to filter perhaps by the matter, name or the matter type. Like there were certain filters built in, but you couldn't tell it, these are the inputs I want to put in, and these are the outputs I want to receive. So having that reporting be so limited and just be a report that it generates, and not a metric, and not something that you can look at as a dashboard, really limits the capability of what you can get from the data that's in the system. And the data is in there. It tells us so much. Yet it's so limited. I want to go back real quick to this podcast episode. I found it. I don't know why it's not showing up in my iTunes, which is why I had trouble finding it. So I'm going to have to have my technical team look at that and see if it got unpublished somehow, but we'll make sure it's up there by the time you're listening to this. It'll be there. But episode 144, it was released very recently, just a few weeks ago from the time of this recording. From law school to 150 person firm with Mike Morse. So Mike Morse is the author of the book called Fireproof, and he runs a 150 person law firm. And we had a conversation, and his number one tip to law firm owners was to create what he called a jumbotron for your business. And what that is basically, if you go to any sort of major sports event, or any sports event that has a real field, they have a big board at the back of the field it's got the replays, it's got the ads, but more importantly, it's got what is going on in the game. What is the clock? What is the score? What inning or quarter are we in? And players and fans can easily take a look, and within seconds, looking at that board, they can see, where are we at? And that's, so he calls it the Jumbotron for your law firm. And that's what the nirvana is. If we can get to a point where there's that one place that we can look and get all the key pieces of information to know, how are we doing towards our goal? How are we doing towards our cash collection? How are we doing as far as moving our cases through? How are we doing with our time usage of our staff? And whatever is important for you and your firm, to be able to have access to those numbers at a glance, that is a game changer. And if I understand correctly, Sachin, that's what you do with EZlytix, correct?
That is absolutely right. And I love the name Jumbotron. I think I'm going to start using it in my conversation. And what we have done is, instead of one Jumbotron, we have created like 7 Jumbotrons, because depending on what you want to look at, right? If you want to look at your matters, we have a matter Jumbotron. If you want to look at your billing and your utilization, you have a separate Jumbotron for that. And if you want to look at how your website is performing, because, a lot of law firms, they spend a lot of money in marketing and the SEO work. So we actually give them one place where they can look at how the website is performing, right? What is the bounce rate? What should be the content strategy? So we have multiple dashboards that actually, based on your roles, you can leverage it and you can get all the information in one place.
Now, this sounds too good to be true, right? It sounds amazing, but as you're describing all the different data points that you can see and you can get, and even the marketing one you just focused on, people would love to have that, and that's not a legal specific thing, right? That's, everybody does marketing, and everybody needs these numbers. So any business would need to have that specific screen to look at. And I imagine that there's a lot of players in the field, but the benefit of using EZlytix is that we have everything in one place. We have our whole firm in one spot, and you've got that as well. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes, absolutely. There are, and you said, there are lawyers who can give you marketing insights, but the beauty is when you tie your marketing insights with your matter to see, okay, you know what, this is the time frame when you ran a LinkedIn ad or a Facebook ad. What is the ROI based on that ad? So you can tie it back to the matter. That is what EZlytix brings to the table. And earlier you mentioned that we can get only basic reports out of Clio or Practice Panther or Rocket Matter, and the reason is they don't integrate with our systems, right? The beauty is with our solution, not only your legal management system, but majority of the law firms, they use QuickBooks for the finances, right? They have some other invoicing system. So we integrate all the systems together and give them the analysis. So that is why I feel that a lot of practice management softwares, you can only get basic reporting out of it, because to get a full 360-degree view, you need to get information from all the different applications.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're absolutely correct that the practice management software has only some of the information, not all of it. It certainly doesn't have insight to your marketing, certainly doesn't have insight to your full accounting picture. Even if you're running your invoicing and your payments through the practice management software, it doesn't know about your payroll costs. It doesn't know about the loans you're taking or your balance sheet and things like that. So you're absolutely right. There is a gap between what the practice management software has included and what and what's maybe in QuickBooks or in another application. Now let me ask you this: it sounds like there's a lot of setup work to connect all the pieces and to have it look at the right data. Is this complicated to get going? Or is it kind of like really simple, plug and play? You log into a couple of accounts and it knows automatically to start crawling and collecting data?
But it is, there's a lot of configuration that needs to be done, but all the configuration is done behind the scenes, right? So we do all the heavy lifting. So for example, if we were to integrate with a legal management system, all we need is access to your system. So once we get access to the system, within 2 days, we can get you up and running with about like 40 plus reports and KPIs configured based on your data, how you have set up your data in the system. Another challenge which we see a lot of our clients face is everybody runs things differently, right? Everybody captures custom information in custom fields. So when you capture this custom information, none of this information is going to show up in any of your standard reports. So we have the ability to actually configure your custom fields as well. So you can actually use that part of your dimensions in your reports. But as far as the law firms are concerned, it's literally plug and play.
Yeah, I love that. And you know what I love what you're doing? So many software companies, they have great marketing. They get you through the door. You sign up for their product, and then you're kind of like sink or swim, right? You have to go and figure out how to use it. And one of the biggest pain points of lawyers is time. I don't have time. So here I've got this perfect, beautiful tool that's supposed to solve my problems, but now I need to become a technical wizard to figure out how to get it going and how to get it working for my firm. And I love that you guys do that on your side. You're like, oh, no problem. You just set up your account, get us connected, and we'll take it from there, and we'll give you what you need. We'll set up your dashboards for you. And I think that that's critical for the success of your product. So I love that you set it up that way, and that you have it going that way. Now, I want to ask you a different question. I'm going to switch gears on you again. One of the problems that a lot of my clients face, and maybe the people who are involved in marketing listening to this are laughing when I ask this question, but many law firm owners are doing this themselves. And one of the things that they struggle with is how do I attribute a client to a specific marketing effort? Now, I know that there's many different tools out there like CallRail, which allows you to have a different phone number for every different effort. There's landing page software or even your website where you can have different web pages that they land on depending on what offer they click or come through. But from your perspective, from the analytics perspective, what's your primary source of data to be able to figure that out and attribute the sale to a specific effort so that we can look at these metrics in a meaningful way to analyze which of our marketing efforts are paying off, which of our sales tactics are paying off?
So it is a combination of technology and process, right? So a lot of times you said that they have a separate number or they use a separate code. So whenever they use a separate number and a code, that information is stored in the database. So we leverage that information. But sometimes they get calls, right? So when they get a call, it is important that part of the intake process, they ask them that, okay, where do you get the referral? Like, how did you hear about us? So once they do that, part of the intake process, they capture that information that gets stored in the database as well. But if you don't have a good process, no matter how good your marketing is, it's very difficult to generate the ROI and understand the ROI of all your efforts.
Yeah, the pushback that I get from my clients is when I ask them where they hear about us, they say, "Oh, I found you on the internet," right? So they don't know, did they search? Was it an SEO organic search that they found? Was it a Google My Business listing? Or was it a pay-per-click ad that they clicked on, right? So it's just like, people don't know when they're coming, they're not marketers. They're like, I don't know. I did a search on the internet and I found you, so the information with that question can be limited as far as what you get.
And there are some very sophisticated third-party products that are available that will actually capture people who come to your website, right? They will capture the trail of how they actually found you. But then that's an investment that a law firm has to make in installing those tools and integrating with their websites.
Yeah, we definitely we need to look into those tools more and highlight them here on the show so that people can know what they are and what the investment is like. Maybe you can help me connect with some of those people, bring them on the show here as well for an interview. So this is great. I mean, I love the idea. I keep saying Jumbotron because Mike Morse, he's really got me going because I've always had a hard time articulating why it's so important to know your numbers and how people can visualize. What does that mean, knowing my numbers, right? And for me, as with my background in accounting, I'm a numbers guy, not that I'm going to do math on the fly. Accountants use calculators, but I understand that the secret to how you're doing, whether you're doing poorly, whether you're doing well, is all in the numbers. And we can literally go through your numbers and identify where are the problems in your business. And that's what you're doing with EZlytix is you're saying, okay, let's take those numbers and let's find a way to present them to you in a meaningful manner so that you can understand what's going on in your business. So can you give me some examples of maybe some use case studies of clients that are using EZlytix that have made a significant impact in the way that they do business because of the data that they're getting from EZlytix, and what is the particular data that made that happen?
Absolutely. So one of the big challenge that a lot of law firms, right, they do fixed fee engagements. And when they do fixed fee engagements, they have no visibility whether they're actually, those engagements are profitable or not, because they keep spending hours towards it, but they don't know whether it's profitable or not. So now we help them, they capture hours against it, but we help them calculate what is their profitability for a specific project, right? So by a client, by engagement, they can look at the profitability. Another example is one of our clients, they did a lot of work in probate, but they were charging on an hourly basis for the probate work. So for a 3-month period, what they decided to do was, instead of charging hourly, they gave a fixed fee. And the moment they started giving fixed fee, the conversion rate increased drastically, because now the customers, they knew exactly what they're going to spend. They were comfortable with that spend, and they would sign up faster. So when they were tracking the process from a matter to cash, the sales cycle was reduced drastically. And they know exactly how much effort is required in for a probate case. So they were very comfortable pricing it and still have a very high margins.
Yeah, I just did a podcast episode 147, and I don't know when our interview is going to get released. So when I say just, it might be a couple of months ago by the time you're listening to this. But when we're recording this, it was the most recent solo episode. So we just did this episode called Unpacking the 2020 Clio Trends Report. And I don't know if you read the Clio Trends Report, if you're familiar with the data that's in there. But interestingly, the last section of the report talks exactly about this, how in order to be relevant, in order to gain business and have clients that are happy and meeting what is the top priorities of the client when you're engaging with them, it's to have flat fee pricing available for services that you're providing, and it's to provide payment plans for your for your clients, and that so it's interesting that you bring up how important flat fee is, and then how important it is to know your numbers so that you can know whether you're pricing it right, because that's the number one question I get. We had an episode that we released over a year ago, episode 26. So you go to profitwithlaw.com/026, and the name of the episode is The Death of the Billable Hour. And in it, I begin to make the case for flat fee billing. And then I have another episode called The Anatomy of Flat Fee Pricing, episode 27. And that's at profitwithlaw.com/027. And folks, the show notes page and the description under the podcast will have all this linked so that you don't need to go and find this yourself. But in those two episodes, I make the case for flat fee billing. I make the case for how you can figure it out. But at the end of the day, that's one of the number one reasons why people don't move forward with it is I don't know how to price it. Like I don't know how to figure out what I should be charging. And what I like about having metrics that you can look at to gauge it is because you're not going to hit it out of the park in the first go. You're not going to get it right the first time that you do it. And it's important to understand what is my profitability? Am I doing better or worse with this flat fee pricing? And do I need to raise my price, or do I need to improve my processes in the firm? One of the beautiful things about flat fee pricing, which I talk about in that episode, is it allows you to shift who's doing the work. When you're working for a client and you're the top gun and you're billing $500 an hour, and then you've got an associate below you that's billing at $300 an hour, and then you've got a paralegal at $150 an hour, right? When you hand off work to the paralegal, you're always in this dichotomy of, I'm going to bill less money by giving this to my paralegal. So I have this resistance and this desire to keep it on my plate because I can bill more for it. Whereas in flat fee billing, nobody cares about where the work gets done, as long as the work gets done and it's done properly and well for the client. So you're going to push as much as you can to the paralegal, or maybe even less expensive employees than a paralegal, if you can get it down to where the processes are systemized and people can produce the work easily without having poor work being done. So what that does is it creates this beautiful situation where the client's getting what they want and you're getting what you want, because you can constantly improve the efficiency on the back end to make it even more profitable along the way. And what I love about what you're saying with EZlytix is now we can give you a dashboard on all of those pieces, all those inputs that are driving the profitability, and you can get easy insight right away about how are we doing on average. Now, obviously, some people are going to be losses when you do flat fee, and some of them are going to be big wins. That's what happens. You know, it's averages. You have to look at the averages when you're doing that. So that you start to compile that data and you start to look at it monthly, quarterly, and all of a sudden it all starts to click. It all starts to make sense, and you can really see, you know, are we priced properly, or do we need to raise it, or maybe even lower it, depending on our close rate versus what, you know, our profit margin on producing the work.
And absolutely, and you know, we give the ability to drill down. So on a cases where they're losing money, they can drill down and see. Sometimes, you know, one paralegal can finish that work in like 4 hours versus the other paralegal took 8 hours, right? So when you drill down, it gives you the opportunity to identify where you can actually improve in efficiency. Another good use case that a lot of our clients face is, you know, they do work on retainer basis, but the attorney has no visibility whether how much money is left on the retainer. They continue to do the work, and they have to do the work until they get a court order for doing it, right? So we have built a report that when the retainer is about 80% exhausted, they get notified so that they can let the client know to replenish the retainer so that they can continue to work. Otherwise, they end up with a lot of non-billable hours, which they have to, end of the day, they have to write it off.
Right. Yeah. This is a really big pain point for a lot of law firms is, you know, they have this great retainer that they set up with the client, right? The client signs it and you put in place that the retainer needs to be replenished when it reaches 50%, you know, 70% of usage, right? But the challenge is that law firms historically, and I'm going to throw a number out there that is not scientific. I'm going to tell you that probably 90% of law firms that are using retainers do a poor job of going to their clients and requesting more money when they hit that retainer replenishment threshold. Some of it is lack of visibility, and some of it is putting too much emotion into the process. So when you have a way of creating a process where a trigger gets fired and somebody does an action, and even, you know, you could even automate it so that there's no human involvement at all, which is really, you know, which is really where you need to be. And lawyers will push back and they're going to say, well, it depends on the client. If I'm almost completed the matter, I don't want to ask for more money. You know, but once again, there's human involvement. And as soon as you add human involvement, you're going to end up losing at the end of the day. I would rather see you ask clients for more money, have some of them get upset about it because, hey, this matter's almost done. And then you look at the situation and say, okay, maybe, you know, you have a good point. You know, even though contractually you really need to replenish this retainer, and even though you're going to get it back soon anyway, we'll give you a grace period. We'll wait 30 days and see what happens. But ultimately, if you systemize the process of retainer replenishment, it's going to significantly decrease your accounts receivable that you build in your law firm. The other thing is that what happens when the retainer runs out is there's another thing that's not visible, which is that the attorney should know, I need to stop work on this client. And this has been a struggle, and the practice management software tries to solve it, usually unsuccessfully. And it's really important that the attorney knows, because they don't get the attorney should not be involved in billing and collections, right? There should be somebody else in the office that handles that. The attorney should be able to be free to serve the client and not worry about the financials and you know, and allow that to come to the table in the discussions they're having with the client. But the attorney also needs to know, hey, there's not enough money to cover this next hour of work. You shouldn't be doing this work until the client pays for it, right? So they're having the ability to trigger an alarm or something that when somebody goes into a matter or create a process, when they go into a matter, they click on this button to look at this dashboard and see where they're at with how much time does this client have left in the bank if I were to start working on this matter, and instantly tell me, instead of telling me how much money they have, know my hourly rate and tell me how much time I can spend on this client. And then I just see, okay, I need to spend 2 hours. It says I've got 6. I'm good to go. I'm just going to go and do my work. Is that how you're presenting it? Is that the kind of thing that somebody can do with EZlytix?
It is exactly how you described is what we do it. What we have is it's a broadcast feature where you can go and set it up. And most of our clients go and set it up on a weekly or a monthly basis, saying that, okay, you know what, if this specific trigger happens, email me the report. So they don't even have to log into the system. The report will automatically be emailed to them. So it's very easy for them to see whether they need to take any action or not. And a lot of times, to get the emotion out of the whole collection process, they can schedule the report and send it to an admin or a collections person in the firm who can focus on doing it, so they don't have to worry about it. Automatically every week, a report will be emailed to the collections person saying that these are the firms that they need to call and focus on. So it just makes the process very streamlined and efficient. That's the whole goal of automating the whole analytics.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Any other use cases you wanted to bring up?
So some of the times, right, what they see is the utilization is a big factor, because based on one of the Clio Trends report, the average utilization per attorney per day was only like 3.3 hours. So which is extremely low. So once they have the visibility on who is doing what, it makes it easy for them to increase the utilization. A lot of times what we have also seen is attorneys are responsible for generating business also. So to understand where the leads are coming from, right? To understand which referral sources are actually better, which are more efficient, and which matter is actually converting based on which referral sources, so they know where to focus, right? So that is very easy for them to look at it on a weekly, monthly, or whatever that strategy sessions looks like. But it makes it very easy for them to understand where the business is coming from and which business is more profitable.
Right. Going back to the utilization rate conversation, yeah, the Clio Trends report is it's mind-boggling what it highlights. But I think that there's this interesting thing that happens in a law firm where some of the time is determined to be non-billable time, even though they're working on a matter. And some of the time is billable time. And then they have this other thing that they do is during the invoicing process or the invoicing cycle, they review all the time that they're billing the client, and they go and they shave more and more time off of the invoice before it even goes to the client. Because, this thing that they worked on, this shouldn't have taken 4 hours. It should have taken 2 hours. So they chop it down to 2 hours, right? And that I think is a big problem, and well, especially if you're doing hourly billing, which I think that you should get off of as quickly as possible. But let's just assume that you are doing hourly billing. It's a big problem because you spent that time. If it took you longer than necessary, you have to trust that there was a reason for it. Now, it could be that there's an attorney who leaves the clock running and goes to the water cooler and then has a 2-hour conversation with a coworker when they go back to their desk and they really only spent 2 hours and says 4 hours. That can happen. But if that's happening, that's a process problem on the inside, and you should start to see where things don't make sense. And if it's the same attorney over and over again, let's start monitoring and see what they're doing, and see if we need to go back and give some credits to some of our clients, and also maybe let them go or have a talk with them and get this behavior fixed. Or institute something. I recently had a conversation with a company called WiseTime, where they have software that tracks your activity on a matter based on your computer activity. So if you walk away from your desk and go to the bathroom, it knows you're not touching the computer. It's going to automatically ask you, hey, were you just working on something, or did you walk away? And then when you say, hey, I walked away, it's not going to bill that to the client. So there's tools even for that. But this is a very long-winded way of asking a question. One of the problems is that utilization is, it may be changed after the fact. In other words, the attorney may have spent the time on billable time, but then the person who's doing the billing, or the attorney, or the law firm owner, goes and makes adjustments to what they're gonna charge based on the work that was done. Is that something that is addressed with EZlytix? In other words, where are you looking to get that data? Is it from the actual time spent? Is it from the time billed? Can you use both data points, and even use the data that you're collecting to run a report to show how detrimental this behavior is to the firm?
Yeah, so we actually collect all the data points, and we also have reports that will show that what was originally booked and what was actually billed and what was invoiced, right? So they can see all that information in one place, so they can understand how much discount they have been giving to a specific client, which attorney ends up giving more discounts, and which type of matter we end up giving more discounts, right? So they have all that visibility in one place. Also, a lot of times, right, every firm we come to, they have a custom way of calculating how much compensation they're going to pay their attorneys. So part of our solution, what we do is we will build X number of custom reports for them, part of the subscription. So every custom calculations that they have in terms of calculating their bonuses and stuff like that is now automated. So with one click, they can look at it, what the compensation should be for their attorneys. So that is one of the very key requirement from most of our managing partners, that they want a very quick way to understand, what the compensation looks like.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to discounting for a second, because I think this is really important to bring up right now. And this is straight from the Clio report. They said it really well, so I'm just going to use their their information. This is page 65 of their 2020 report that they released. Survey data shows that 40% of law firms regularly reduce prices or offer discounts to clients. While reducing prices and offering discounts may be a short-term solution to a client's inability to pay the bill, and may even improve their satisfaction, there are a number of drawbacks for the law firm. Number one, expectations for future reductions and discounting, right? So when you discount, the client starts to expect it to happen in the future, and then it becomes very difficult to get out of that behavior. Number two, revenue unpredictability. You can't predict your revenue accurately if you can't predict how much you're going to collect, because you're discounting all the time. Number three, you're devaluing legal services. So you're essentially saying that what we're charging is not really worth what we're saying it's worth, because we're actually gonna give you a discount off of that, right? And then lost client opportunities. And this is a big one, and people don't really think about this, but if you're gonna discount on the back end, then you might have people who said no to coming on board and working with you because your fees were too high. And had you led with the discounted fee, had you led with what you are going to end up charging instead of what you would like to charge on paper and then discount, you might have got more clients. So that's, it's a hidden loss at the front end that we don't really think about. But if you start to think about this, what we're actually doing by cutting these hours down, by discounting, and all these negatives, what you're also doing is you're also making it harder to sell. And the sooner that we can get out of that behavior, and just come to terms. I mean, if you're just priced too high, if you feel you're priced too high, great, change your rates. Instead of cutting back how many hours you're going to bill the client for, build them a lower hourly rate from the get-go, and get more clients that way, and do more work, and make it work for you. So I think that marrying the problems in the industry and the fixes and the solutions to those problems with the way that you're going to get reporting on this information, so that you understand how bad the problem is, so that you understand whether your solutions are fixing the problem. I think those two go hand in hand. I think that EZlytix solves a problem in that it creates a place where you can go to get the information you need to be able to know whether these problems are problems that exist in your firm, whether your solutions that you tried to implement actually fix the problem in your firm. So I really love that all of these examples that you're using, because they're right on point with the actual pain points that we're seeing in the legal industry.
Right. And our concept is of crowdsourcing. So we had started with about like 20 KPIs out of the box, and we continue to add it, right? So whenever a law firm, they ask us to add a new report or a KPI, we will add it, we'll create it in a generic format so that can be leveraged by other law firms also. So it's not just that the 40 KPIs, but we constantly add new KPIs. And whenever we add new KPIs, it's available for the law firm at no extra cost. They don't have to pay anything extra on getting new reports. So it gives them the ability to look at data, which they may not even have thought about that I should be looking at data in so and so way, right? So it's like a crowdsourcing approach that we are taking.
Right. Awesome. So Sachin, real quick, which size law firm or what particular practice, areas are the right fit for your product, or is really anybody from a solo up, a relevant client for you?
I think anybody, right? So we have clients who are like two lawyer firms to up to like 35 lawyer firms with multiple offices across the country. They can use it, right? The question is, are you data driven, right? Are you willing to make changes based on data? Are you looking to improve your profitability, improve your efficiency, right? If you don't have that data driven mindset, no matter how big or small it is, you may not appreciate what we do, right? So, and every law firm is collecting tremendous amount of data. So they have to start being data centric in trying to run their law firm as a business, because they do a great job serving their clients, but sometimes they don't run their firm as a business. So that is what we are trying to make it easy for them to run it as a business. And our pricing is based on the size of the employees. We don't nickel or dime on features. So whether you are a solo law firm or a 100 lawyer firm, you'll get all the features, but our pricing is based on your size of the firm.
Right. I love that. Okay. So I honestly, I think that this, EZlytix solves a real big pain point that people don't even know that they had, right? It's one of those things that when you start to recognize the data that you need to be a good decision maker in your business, that's when you start to recognize, hey, I don't have a way of getting this data, right? And I think that's a huge shift that has to happen. And like you said, I come across this all the time. Attorneys say, well, I didn't learn business in law school, right? They didn't teach me that. I didn't go to business school. I went to law school. I became a lawyer. And lawyers kind of hide behind that. And I'm not talking to my listeners because you guys listen to this podcast, so you're already past that. But the sooner that you can embrace the fact that you're a business owner and you're running a business, and you start to look at things from a business lens and not from a lawyer lens, that's when you can start to see success. And I think that an investment in something like EZlytix, and folks, I'm not getting a commission from EZlytix for sharing this. I'm just excited about the possibility because this is something that is so sorely needed. But even if it's going to cost you a few $1,000s to implement, or I don't know what the pricing is. So we're not, Sachin, I don't want to throw you under the bus here with pricing, but anywhere from a few thousand to multiples of tens of thousands, depending on the size of your firm, that could be money that is so well spent, and people are always asking me, like, how do I reduce my technology stack? Technology is costing more and more in my firm. It's costing me a larger and larger percentage of my budget. And I'm starting to get concerned about these costs that are creeping up. And I'll highlight another thing from the Legal Trends report, which is that office space is the biggest waste in your firm. It is costing you, it is money that is costing you dearly, because having an office ranked as the least important component in the decision-making process of how to choose an attorney by consumers. So they surveyed consumers, and they had a list of 10 things that they had the consumer rate, how important is this in your decision to choose a law firm. And guess where having an office space ranked? Dead last.
Yeah.
And, so if you instead, decide, hey, instead of having an office space, I'm going to put everybody into a virtual office, and I'm going to take the money I save there, and I'm going to recognize that the new rent that I need to pay is on the various pieces of technology to make me the biggest, best, badass law firm in my area or in my market, then that is going to be when you start to see the benefits, because efficiency, visibility, knowledge, that's what makes law firms profitable. That is what is going to be the wave of the future, and we need to start to embrace that. So even if this is not cheap software, when I'm not getting into a pricing discussion, I don't want to have that discussion. I want people to go and check you out and have that discussion with you. But even if it's expensive, if this is going to allow you to run a more efficient firm, to make better business decisions, how do you put a price tag on that, right? Look at what the possibilities are for your growth, where you think you can go. And then, hey, if I had the right information to get there, what would that be worth? It's going to be a no-brainer to just, to use something like EZlytix. And it doesn't have to be EZlytix. I have no idea if you have competitors in the marketplace. That's not the point of this podcast episode. The point was to talk about what are the kinds of numbers we can look at. What are the possibilities when we start looking at this data? And I think we've done a great job of highlighting that. So Sachin, I'm going to give you an opportunity now to do two things. Number one, I'd like you to share from your information and your experience working with law firms, what's one piece of advice or one thing that you would tell them? If there's one thing you take away from this episode, pay attention to this or do this. So I'd like you to share one thing, and then I'd like you to share with us, how do we follow up with you if somebody is, hey, sold, I want to check this EZlytix thing out. I want to have a conversation with somebody in your sales department. I want to go and see a demo. What is the best next step for them to take in checking out EZlytix?
So one thing I would like to share is that they need to start looking at data more frequently, because most of the law firms that we're working with right now, just because of lack of access and the time it takes for them to look at the data, they would look at data like quarterly, and which is too late, because now you're looking at in a rearview mirror what happened last quarter, right? So start looking at data more frequently so that you have an opportunity to make corrections. You have the opportunity to make better decisions to improve your profitability, your efficiency, and everything, right? And not just our tool, but any automated analytics solution will pay off within the first 3 months, because the amount of time they will save. And for the listeners of this podcast, we are willing to waive the configuration fee. So if they go to EZlytix.com/law analytics, and they can sign up and reference this podcast, and we'll waive the configuration fee for them.
That's
and
great.
I'm assuming you will share the details, part of the notes.
Yeah,
we can share the URL.
Yeah, we're going to link this up in the show notes for sure. And Sachin, thank you very much for your kindness. Our listeners really appreciate you doing that for them. And I appreciate you doing that for them too. Anything that we can do to get somebody to get started and to dive into it, start using it, to see proof in the actual usage of the metrics, that this is something that's well worth it. And as you were talking, one particular client that I know came to mind where I helped them to figure out what are the most important critical numbers for them to be looking at, basically every day. Like in the morning, we have our quick meeting, of staff. What are the numbers I need to look at this morning that's going to tell me how we're doing towards our goals? And I helped them identify those, but they were doing it on a spreadsheet, that extracting data from the practice management software, from their CRM application, from their Google Analytics. They were taking all that information and manually compiling this for a daily report. And, this could be a total game changer. I mean, they probably free up a staff member by putting in EZlytix. to have this all be done for them without needing to manually gather this data from the different places. So I definitely see this could be something that pays for itself even in the human resources savings factor if they're already doing this kind of data analysis. And I think that your assumption of people looking at it quarterly is very generous, because I think that what's happening is people are not looking at the data at all. Not quarterly, not annually. They're just letting chips fall where they fall and wondering why things are not as good as they could be, or why or even if things are great, they don't know why they're great, right? So they don't know what to do more of. And that's really the problem right now. So I think that EZlytix can solve that problem, but people also have to change their behavior. They have to get used to, hey, I need to look at the numbers. I need to analyze the numbers. I need to understand what they mean so that I can make meaningful decisions from them. That doesn't happen overnight, but you got to start with having it so that you can start to analyze it. So love it. Sachin, this was a great conversation. Thank you so much for coming here and sharing with us and being so generous with your time and your offer for our audience. We're going to put all of this into the show notes. You don't need to remember any of the links, the URLs. I referred to a number of our podcast episodes. Sachin gave us a link as well for his website. We're going to put all that in the show notes. The show notes appear both in the description of the podcast as well as on our website, profitwithlaw.com/episode number. So I don't know what the episode number is going to be when this gets released, but you just put the episode number in and it'll take you right to the show notes page. One final thing, if you enjoyed this episode, if you enjoyed this interview and you want to see more of it, make sure that you're subscribed. Hit the subscribe button in your podcast player so that you get notified when we release a new episode. We release new episodes at a minimum twice a week. Every Tuesday, it's just me, yours truly, getting behind the mic, sharing some information with you that I think is relevant for you to hear. Some of it is great. Some of it you probably could care less about, but more exciting, every Thursday, we have a guest interview, and our guests they just kill it. Our guests are off the chart, every single one of them. This one included. Sachin was absolutely amazing. And if you want to check out more of our guest episodes, you can certainly look at the history of the show. Well over 140 plus episodes when I'm recording this. When you're listening to this, it's going to be well over 150. You can go back and listen to a ton of great interviews that have happened in the past. So folks, thank you so much for checking us out and staying here till the end. We'll catch you on next week as we dive into some new topics with you. Take care.
Thank you for having me.
That's it for this week's episode of Profit with Law. If you have enjoyed the show, please consider sharing it with at least one person. Imagine how many lives we can change if we each shared this episode. Another way to share the episode is on social media. We appreciate your support and look forward to you joining us again next week.